Ants are communists. But in order to argue my point and not make this a baseless accusation, we're going to do this. First, we're going to go over the principles of communism. Second, we're going to draw comparisons between communist principles and the nature of eusocial species. Ants, bees, even naked mole rats. But for simplicity, we're going to focus on ants. Anyway, so first we have to define communism, and per Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, not just kidding, okay, Wikipedia defines communism as a political and economic system that aims to create a classless society by eliminating socioeconomic class struggles. In a communist society, the state controls all property and wealth, and the means of production, such as the factories and mines, are owned and controlled by the public. There is no private property, currency, or government, and wealth is divided equally among citizens or based on individual need. Production and distribution are centrally planned, and the principle is from everyone according to their skills to everyone according to their needs. So, in simpler terms, first, basically no form of hierarchy within a social structure, which for humans is created by things like financial power or fame, etc. But for animals, we can think of this as something like access to shelter, food, and other life's necessities. 2 builds on the first principle, stating that ownership of something cannot be privatized. Everyone is entitled to everything, and no one is allowed a monopoly. Again, translating this to nature's terms, we can think of this as territorial disputes animals have, whether it be making alliances or having enemies is a similar analogy. 3. Production and distribution of goods and services, like food for example, is essentially a team effort, which again, we can draw parallels in nature with things like collaborative hunting. So with these comparisons laid out, how do eusocial species, and specifically ants, adhere to the rules of communism? Well, first, let's define eusocial species. Of an animal species, especially an insect, showing an advanced level of social organization, in which a single female or caste produces the offspring and non-reproductive individuals cooperate in caring for the young. So essentially, they got this big Bertha, the queen, pumping out babies, and a ton of the infertile kids care for those babies. But why do infertile workers care for the queen's offspring? And isn't this more of a monarchy with everyone helping the queen? Well, not exactly. It is not that simple. And that has to do with the behavior of eusocial species. 2 theories currently exist as to why ants and other eusocial species act in this utopian, altruistic, for the good of the colony way, and one is kin selection. So this theory suggests that worker ants are altruistic because their selfless behavior helps their sisters, who share their genes, reproduce. Since sisters are more closely related to each other than they are to their own offspring, it might be worth it for a worker ant to sacrifice herself for her own sister queen. Group selection theory is another theory on this, which suggests that worker ants are altruistic because they're driven by the reward of the colony's survival. For example, the worker ant might forego their own reproduction to help build the nest, collect food, and defend the colony. So, regardless of which theory is correct, they both are attempting to explain that principles that ants and other yew species tend to live by kinda line up with communist ideals. So, let's look at number 1. Ants lack a social hierarchy, at least in the traditional sense like we talked about. There aren't some alpha ants bullying the younger ants in their colony. All ants within their colony have access to resources like shelter and nutrients, but it's the queen, you say? They all serve the queen. Well, they serve the queen in order to make the colony grow, whereas when we think of kings or even presidents now, they're usually looking out for themselves only. And number 2, regarding the queen, they're not immune to mutiny. If the colony thinks she's withholding eggs or simply isn't producing enough, she's executed. Furthermore, the ant society is caretaker ants, soldier ants, scouts, etc. But instead of this attributing to a hierarchy in the colony, like a salary or something, there's simply one gear in the ever-grinding metropolis of ant colonies. 2. Everything is state-owned with no privatization. And do ants do this? Well, every ant is entitled to the ant colony just as no ant has a monopoly to a specific place within the colony. So, check. And number 3, a collaborative effort in production of goods and services. Definitely check. Ants can take down the biggest of threats in a group, killing wasps by swarming them, devouring red crabs in the forest, actively waging war on species they don't like in other colonies. They make collaborative efforts, foraging for food for the colony, and even making makeshift bridges or rafts in floods. This, folks, is really the workers owning the means of their own production. And ultimately, these were the parallels that I drew, which made me believe that eusocial species like ants are basically nature's communists. A classless society where every member must pull their weight. A society where everyone owns everything, just as no one owns anything. And a society built by its members for its members. So, ladies and gentlemen, I guarantee you, Karl Marx is very proud of it.